Every day the world is full of noise. Cars passing, people talking, lives moving forward. But sometimes, in the middle of all this sound, someone is completely unheard. This is not a story about a dog that was lost. This is a story about a dog who was still there, waiting, even after the world stopped listening. His name was Echo, not because he barked too much, but because whenever he did, the house felt alive. Echo did not understand words. He didn't know what people meant when they said things like temporary or just until we figure things out. Dogs never understand promises made out loud. They understand routines. Echo learned this house through sound, the click of the door every morning, the soft rhythm of footsteps moving across the floor, the familiar noise of keys placed on the table at night. These sounds told Echo everything he needed to know. This was home. He slept near the door, not because he was guarding it, but because he wanted to be close to the first sound of the day. Every morning he waited, not anxiously, not desperately, just patiently. Because patience comes naturally to dogs who believe they belong somewhere. Echo had come from places that were loud in the wrong ways. Cages that echoed with barking, floors that were always cold, hands that never stayed long enough to become familiar. So when this house became quiet in the evenings, it felt safe. Silence to Echo was not emptiness, it was peace. He learned the difference between good silence and bad silence. Good silence meant someone was nearby, maybe reading, maybe resting. Bad silence was something he hadn't learned yet. Echo followed the sounds of life without needing to be seen. He didn't demand attention, he didn't ask for much, just to be close, just to listen. To Echo, this house wasn't a place. It was a pattern. And patterns, once learned, feel permanent. Dogs believe in permanence, even when humans don't. That morning felt different. Echo noticed it before anything actually changed. Dogs always do. The house was quiet, but not the kind of quiet Echo knew. There were no footsteps, no familiar sounds drifting from room to room, no rhythm to follow. Echo stood near the door, waiting for the click that always came next. It didn't. Instead, there was something else. A long pause, the kind of pause that doesn't belong in a routine. The door was open, not wide, just enough for cold air to slide inside. Echo didn't rush, he didn't panic, he simply waited. Because waiting had always worked before. Minutes passed. The light in the house shifted. Morning moved forward without anyone inside it. Echo walked slowly from room to room. The floor still smelled familiar. The walls still carried echoes of sound. But something was missing. Not objects, presence. Echo sat down near the doorway. This was where mornings began. This was where routines restarted themselves. He listened carefully. Every distant sound outside made his ears lift slightly. A car passing, a voice far away, a door closing somewhere else. None of it belonged to him. Echo waited for the sound that meant everything was normal again. It never came. And for the first time, Echo didn't know what he was supposed to do next. Echo had never crossed the doorway alone before. The outside world had always come with a sound, a voice calling his name, footsteps moving ahead of him. This time, there was nothing leading the way. Echo stood at the edge of the door for a long time. Not because he was afraid, but because routines don't end suddenly. They fade, and Echo was still waiting for them to restart. The cold air touched his nose first, unfamiliar, sharp. He took one slow step outside, then another. The street looked the same as it always had. Houses still stood in their places. The road still curved the way it always did. But something felt wrong. The sounds didn't belong to him anymore. Echo listened carefully. A distant engine, wind brushing against leaves, a door closing far away. None of it was meant for him. He walked a few steps down the sidewalk and stopped. This was usually the point where someone would say his name, not loudly, just enough to remind him where he was going. Echo turned back and looked at the house. The door was still open. Open doors usually mean return. So Echo sat down. Right there on the pavement. He didn't lie down. He didn't relax. He sat the way dogs sit when they are waiting for instruction. Minutes passed. Then more. The sun climbed higher, changing the color of the street. Echo adjusted his posture slightly, but he didn't move away. Because leaving felt wrong. Leaving would mean choosing something, and Echo wasn't ready to choose anything yet. He wasn't lost. Not in his mind. He was exactly where he was supposed to be, waiting for the sound that would tell him what came next. Echo stayed where he was, not because he didn't know how to move, but because staying had always worked before. The world continued around him. Cars passed. People walked by. A dog barked somewhere far away. Echo lifted his head every time a sound came close enough to matter, but none of them were the sound he was waiting for. Hours passed. The sun shifted slowly across the street, changing the color of the pavement beneath his paws. Echo adjusted once, just enough to stay comfortable. Dogs don't measure time the way humans do. They don't count hours. They count moments between familiar sounds, and the space between those moments was growing longer. When night came, Echo didn't leave. He curled his body slightly, keeping one ear open, listening even as his eyes closed. The house behind him stayed quiet. The door eventually closed on its own. Echo noticed. He stood up, walked back to it, and sat again. Doors closing didn't always mean goodbye. Sometimes they just meant someone would open them again in the morning. Morning came. Echo was still there. The street woke up slowly. A jogger passed without stopping. A car slowed down, then moved on. Someone dropped food a few steps away. Echo looked at it, then looked back toward the house. Eating felt like giving up a position, and Echo wasn't ready to give up anything yet. By the third day, people started noticing him, not as a dog with a home, but as a dog who hadn't moved. They wondered how long he had been there. Echo wondered when the sound would return. Both questions stayed unanswered. Waiting was no longer something Echo was doing. Waiting was something he had become. By the fourth day, Echo stopped being invisible. People began to notice him. Not for who he was, but for how long he had stayed in the same place. Some slowed their steps. They looked at him carefully, trying to decide what kind of dog he was. Lost, abandoned, dangerous. Echo watched them back quietly. He didn't move toward anyone. He didn't move away either. Stillness for Echo was not stubbornness. It was loyalty. Someone bent down once, holding out a hand. Echo lifted his head, not with hope, with recognition. But the hand hesitated, then pulled back. Echo's ears lowered slightly, not in fear, in confusion. Voices passed above him. He might bite. Better not touch him. Someone will call animal control. Echo didn't understand the words. He understood the tone. Caution, distance. Humans were speaking to him without speaking to him. Food appeared again, placed gently on the ground, a safe distance away. Echo looked at it longer this time. Hunger had begun to whisper, but louder than hunger was the sound he was still waiting for. Eating would mean turning his back on the house, and Echo wasn't ready to do that. So he stayed. The sun dropped lower, stretching shadows across the pavement. Echo's shadow stayed exactly where it had been for days. People came and went, each carrying a different story about him. Some saw a problem. Some saw a threat. Some saw a responsibility they didn't want. No one saw what Echo saw. A door that could still open. A sound that could still return. By nightfall, Echo lowered his head slightly, not in defeat, in endurance, because dogs don't stop waiting when things get difficult. They stop waiting when they stop believing, and Echo still believed. On the 5th day, something inside Echo shifted. It wasn't hunger, it wasn't fear. It was the weight of waiting without response. The street was louder now. Cars passed more often. People spoke closer to him, not realizing how near they were. Echo lifted his head as a familiar sound echoed in the distance. For a brief moment, his body remembered what it was supposed to do. He stood up, his chest moved forward, and Echo barked. It wasn't loud, it wasn't sharp, it was careful. The kind of bark that asks, not demands. The sound floated into the air and disappeared. No one turned around, no one stopped walking. A car passed right through it, swallowing the sound whole. Echo froze. He tried again. This time the bark was thinner, shorter. It barely made it past his own ears. Echo waited for a reaction, a look, a pause, a change in the rhythm of the world. Nothing happened. The street kept moving exactly as it had before. Echo slowly sat back down, not because he was tired, but because the action felt unfinished. Dogs bark because they expect an answer. Echo had always gotten one. A voice calling back, a door opening, footsteps turning toward him. This bark had none of that. It fell into the space between passing sounds and stayed there alone. Echo lowered his head slightly, not in shame, in confusion. The world had just taught him something new. Sound did not always matter. And for the first time since he sat down on that pavement, Echo wondered if waiting quietly was safer than calling out again. After that day, Echo didn't bark again. Not because he couldn't, but because he had learned something painful. Barking no longer changed anything. The street didn't respond. People didn't slow down. The house behind him stayed silent. Echo discovered a new rule of the world. If no one answers, calling out only makes the quiet feel louder. So he stopped. He learned to listen instead. Every sound passed through him without reaction. Cars, voices, laughter that didn't belong to him. Echo watched the night settle in. The cold crept into the pavement, slowly reaching his paws. He shifted his weight once, then became still again. Stillness was easier now. Stillness didn't disappoint. A group of people walked past, talking loudly. One of them looked down at Echo. "Strange dog," someone said. Echo didn't react. His ears didn't move. His head didn't lift. Silence had become armor. Later that night, a siren echoed far away. Echo felt it vibrate in his chest. For a brief second, instinct tried to rise, but Echo pushed it back down. Making noise didn't bring people closer anymore. It only reminded him how alone he was. Dogs don't stop barking suddenly. They stop when barking hurts more than silence. Echo lay down for the first time since the door had opened days ago, not to sleep deeply, just to rest his body. His eyes stayed open, watching, listening, waiting without sound. And as the night grew quieter, Echo's silence grew heavier. Because when a dog chooses silence, it's not peace he's choosing, it's survival. Lily came to the park every evening, not because she liked parks, but because parks didn't ask her questions. She sat on the same bench each day, same posture, same distance from everyone else. Lily wasn't silent because she had nothing to say. She was silent because speaking had never come easily to her. Words felt heavy, like they could fall apart if she used them too quickly. That evening, Lily noticed the dog, not immediately. At first, he was just part of the background, still, dark against the pavement. But something about him felt familiar. He wasn't begging, he wasn't restless, he wasn't trying to be noticed, he was simply there. Lily shifted slightly on the bench. Echo noticed the movement, but didn't turn his head. Silence had taught him caution. Lily didn't wave, she didn't call out, she didn't move closer, she just stayed. Two quiet figures sharing the same space without sharing attention. Lily watched the street the same way Echo did, as if waiting for something she couldn't name. Minutes passed, neither of them moved, and for the first time since Echo had chosen silence, being quiet didn't feel like being alone. Lily stood up to leave. She hesitated for a moment, not because she was afraid, but because she was thinking. Then she sat back down. Echo's ears shifted slightly, not upward, just enough to notice. Nothing was exchanged, no sound, no touch, no promise. But something important happened anyway. Someone had stayed without asking him to make a sound. Lily came back the next day. She didn't look around this time. She didn't search the park. She walked straight to the bench and sat down. Echo was already there. He hadn't moved far since the night before. Dogs don't return to places. They return to moments that felt safe. Lily sat the same way she always did, hands in her sleeves, shoulders slightly forward. Echo noticed the pattern. Patterns mattered to him. They sat like that for a long time. No eye contact, no sound, just the quiet passing between them. Lily brought a small piece of bread in her pocket. She didn't hold it out. She didn't offer it with a hand. She placed it gently on the ground, closer to herself than to Echo. Then she looked away. Echo noticed. He didn't move. Not because he didn't want the food, but because this felt different from before. There was no pressure in it, no expectation. Lily wasn't asking him to come closer. She was just sharing space. Minutes passed. The wind shifted. Leaves moved softly across the ground. Echo stood up slowly, walked a few steps, and stopped. Lily didn't turn her head. Echo lowered his nose, took the bread, and stepped back. He didn't rush. He didn't look at her. He simply returned to his place. Lily smiled, not openly, just enough to feel it, and something inside Echo loosened. Not trust, not yet, but familiarity. The next day, Lily came again, and the day after that, nothing changed, and somehow, that was everything. Echo still didn't bark. Lily still didn't speak much. But now, when the street grew quiet, the silence felt shared, and shared silence weighs less than being alone. It didn't take long for people to notice them together. Two figures, always in the same place. One too quiet for a child, one too still for a stray dog. At first it was just glances, curious looks from across the park, then whispers. Adults speaking softly, the way people do when they think someone might be in danger. Lily noticed before Echo did. She felt eyes on her back, questions forming in the air behind her. She pulled her hoodie a little tighter around herself and stayed seated. Echo noticed next, not the words, but the change in energy. Dogs sense tension long before they understand it. A woman stood nearby for a moment, pretending to check her phone. She looked at Echo, then at Lily, then back again. Echo lowered his head slightly, not in fear, in readiness. Lily stayed still. She didn't look up. She didn't explain. Silence had always been safer for her, too. A man passed by and slowed his pace. "Is that dog okay?" he asked, not directly to Lily, but out loud. Lily didn't answer, not because she couldn't, but because answering would change everything. Echo felt the shift immediately. This wasn't the gentle quiet he had learned to trust. This was the kind of attention that moved things. He shifted his body slightly closer to Lily, not touching her, just closer enough to be felt. Lily's fingers tightened inside her sleeves. She didn't move away. That small decision mattered more than any word. The adults didn't stay long. Concern has a short attention span. But the watching had begun. Echo stayed quiet. Lily stayed seated. And both of them understood something new. The world doesn't like things it can't explain, and silence makes people uncomfortable. The woman noticed them before she decided to stop. She had walked this path many times before, enough to know what usually belonged and what didn't. A quiet girl sitting alone wasn't unusual. A stray dog resting near a bench wasn't unusual either. But the way they sat together, that was different. The woman didn't approach right away. She didn't call out. She didn't reach for her phone. She stood where she was and watched. Echo noticed her instantly, not because she was threatening, but because she wasn't pretending not to see him. Her gaze wasn't sharp. It wasn't nervous. It was steady. Lily felt it too, the quiet weight of someone paying attention without demanding anything. The woman shifted her weight slightly, adjusting her coat. She looked at Echo first, took in his stillness, his lowered head, the way his body stayed ready but not tense. Then she looked at Lily, not to question her, not to judge her, just to understand what kind of child chooses silence when she could choose noise. The woman took one step forward, then stopped herself. She remembered something important. Some things fall apart the moment you rush them. Echo didn't move. He didn't bark. He didn't pull away. He simply watched back. Lily stayed seated. Her shoulders stiffened slightly, then relaxed. The woman stayed where she was for a long time, long enough for the air to settle, long enough for Echo to decide she wasn't a threat, long enough for Lily to decide she wasn't being cornered. When the woman finally turned to leave, she didn't feel satisfied. She felt responsible. Because some situations don't ask you to fix them. They ask you to pay attention. And as she walked away, the woman knew one thing clearly. Whatever this was, it mattered. And if she handled it wrong, it would disappear. The woman came back the next morning, not with a plan, not with answers, just with the quiet understanding that leaving things exactly as they were would eventually harm everyone involved. She approached slowly, not toward Lily, not toward Echo, toward the space between them. Echo noticed her steps immediately. His body tensed just enough to be ready, but not enough to run. Lily felt it too. She watched from the corner of her eye, heart steady but alert. The woman stopped several feet away and crouched down. She didn't speak. She didn't reach out. She placed a small bowl of water on the ground and gently slid it forward. Then she leaned back, creating distance on purpose. Echo stared at the bowl. Water wasn't new, but the way it was offered was no command, no expectation. Lily watched closely. She didn't nod. She didn't signal. She simply stayed where she was. Echo stood up slowly, each movement careful, measured. He stepped toward the bowl, then paused. His eyes lifted briefly to the woman, not asking permission, checking intention. The woman didn't move. She kept her hands visible, her breathing steady. Echo lowered his head and drank. The sound was soft, barely noticeable, but it changed something. When Echo stepped back, the woman gently pushed the bowl a little farther away, giving him back his space. Lily exhaled quietly, a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The woman stood up slowly and took a step back. Still no words, still no demands. As she turned to leave, she glanced once more at Echo, and for the first time, silence can survive many things. Time, weather, loneliness. But it struggles when rules arrive. The woman returned that afternoon not because she wanted to interfere, but because people had started asking questions. Questions don't come softly. They arrive with opinions attached. Whose dog is that? Why is he still there? Is it safe for a child to sit so close? The woman heard them all. She didn't answer right away. She watched instead. Echo hadn't changed. He still sat the same way, his head low, his body quiet. Lily hadn't changed either. Same bench, same posture, same calm refusal to explain herself. But the space around them felt different, tighter. A man stopped nearby and spoke to the woman this time. His voice was polite, concerned. "That dog can't just stay here," he said. The woman nodded slowly. She understood what he meant. Public spaces don't like unanswered stories. Echo sensed the shift immediately. His ears tilted slightly backward. Not fear, readiness. Lily noticed too. Her fingers tightened inside her sleeves. She stayed seated, but her breathing changed. The woman knelt down near Lily, careful not to touch her. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Lily nodded. A small movement, barely visible. It was enough. The woman stood up again and faced the man. "He's calm," she said. "He hasn't moved from this spot for days." The man frowned. That's exactly the problem. Echo didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone, the kind that turns quiet situations into problems. For the first time in days, Echo shifted closer to Lily, just enough for his shoulder to nearly touch her leg. Lily didn't pull away. She didn't flinch. She stayed. That small decision echoed louder than any bark. The woman exhaled slowly. She knew what came next. Once rules are mentioned, they don't disappear on their own. She looked down at Echo, then at Lily, and understood something heavy. Silence had protected them so far, but silence alone wouldn't protect them for much longer. The word came quietly, not shouted, not announced, just spoken the way rules usually are: animal control. The woman heard it from someone standing behind her, a suggestion, a solution. Echo didn't understand the words, but his body reacted instantly. The air changed, it grew tighter. Lily felt it too. She looked up for the first time in days. Her eyes searched the woman's face, asking a question she didn't say out loud. The woman didn't answer right away. She turned slightly, placing herself between the sound of that word and the quiet space the two of them shared. "He hasn't hurt anyone," she said calmly. "He doesn't move. He doesn't bark." Someone shook their head. "That's not normal." Echo lowered his head further, not because he was ashamed, but because being noticed suddenly felt dangerous. Lily's hands tightened into fists inside her sleeves. She didn't stand up. She didn't run. She stayed. That choice mattered. The woman crouched down again, this time closer to Echo than before. She didn't touch him. She didn't need to. Her presence alone said enough. "We just need time," she said softly. Not to the people around her, to the situation itself. Echo's breathing slowed slightly. Lily's shoulders relaxed by a fraction. The silhouettes in the distance didn't move closer. Not yet. But the threat had a shape now. A name. Silence had been misunderstood before. Now it was being labeled. And once something is labeled a problem, it rarely stays untouched for long. Lily's mother came looking for her that evening. She didn't come angry. She came worried. The kind of worry that walks fast and speaks before it listens. Lily saw her from a distance. Her shoulders tightened. Her body reacted before her thoughts did. She stood up halfway from the bench, then stopped. Echo noticed instantly, not the person, the hesitation, the way Lily's breathing changed. He shifted closer, his body low, his head down, not protecting her, anchoring himself. Lily's mother slowed when she saw the dog. She hesitated. Fear rose quietly between them. "Lily," she called. Lily didn't answer right away. She looked down at Echo, not for permission, for reassurance. Echo didn't move. He didn't look up. He stayed exactly where he was. Lily's fingers brushed the fabric of her hoodie, twisting it gently. "You can't stay here," her mother said softly now. "People are talking." Echo felt the tension tighten again. The word "stay" carried weight. Lily's chest rose and fell once, twice. She took a small step away from the bench. Echo's ears shifted back. His body leaned forward just a little. Not to follow, to wait. Lily stopped. The woman stepped forward calmly, placing herself in the space without blocking anyone. "He hasn't hurt her," she said gently. "And she hasn't been unsafe." Lily's mother looked between them. Her child, the dog, the silence. "This can't continue like this," she said. Lily nodded, a small, heavy nod. Echo felt it then, the shift that meant things were about to change whether he was ready or not. Lily knelt slowly in front of him, not to hug, not to cling, just close enough to be seen. "I'll come back," she whispered. It was barely sound, but it was the first thing she had ever said directly to him. Echo's chest tightened. Something pressed upward. Something old. His mouth opened slightly. No sound came out. Lily stood up and walked away, slowly, looking back once. Echo stayed where he was, his body unmoving, his silence heavier than it had ever been. Because this time, he wasn't waiting for a sound. He was waiting for a promise. The rain came and went quietly. Echo stayed. He always did. The pavement beneath him cooled, holding the memory of water long after the sky cleared. Night settled in slowly, the kind of night that doesn't rush anyone. It just waits to see who will leave. Echo didn't leave. He sat exactly where Lily had knelt earlier. The place still carried her shape, her warmth, her almost promise. The woman returned first. She stood at a distance, not approaching, not calling out. She had learned by now that noise ruined fragile things. Echo noticed her. He acknowledged her presence with a slow blink, then looked back toward the path. That was when Lily appeared. Not running, not hiding, just walking. Each step careful, as if the ground itself might say something back. Echo's body reacted before his mind did. His ears lifted slightly, his chest expanded. Something old stirred inside him. Lily stopped several feet away. She didn't come closer. She remembered how silence worked here. The woman held her breath. The street held its sound. Echo's mouth opened just a little. His throat tightened. For a moment, it felt like a bark might finally escape. Not loud, not desperate. Just enough to say, "You came back." Nothing came out. Echo closed his mouth again. The sound stayed inside him, trembling. Lily took one slow step forward, then another. She knelt down the same way she had before. No words this time. She didn't need them. Echo leaned forward slightly, his nose close enough to catch her scent again. Familiar, safe. His tail moved once, just once. Lily smiled, not wide, not proud, relieved. The woman exhaled slowly behind them. The crisis hadn't passed. The rules were still there. The threat hadn't disappeared. But something important had survived. Lily had returned, and Echo hadn't lost the sound inside him. He had only been waiting for the right reason to let it out. They came early. Not because they were in a hurry, but because rules like mornings. They prefer things quiet, orderly, easy to control. Echo noticed them before anyone spoke. The rhythm of their steps was different, measured, intentional. Lily felt it too. Her body tensed slightly even before she looked up. The woman stepped forward without being asked. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She simply placed herself where she needed to be. "He's been here for days," one of the uniformed figures said. The words were neutral, professional. Echo didn't understand them, but he understood the attention. His ears tilted back just a fraction. His body stayed still. Running had never been part of his plan. Lily's fingers brushed the bench beside her, not reaching for Echo, just grounding herself. "He doesn't bark," the other voice added. "That's unusual." The woman nodded slowly. "He used to," she said. The words hung there. Used to. Echo felt something tighten inside his chest. The memory of sound. The memory of being answered. The uniformed figure took a step closer. Not threatening, just procedural. Lily's breathing quickened. Echo sensed it instantly. His head lifted slightly. His chest expanded. The world waited for a sound, for proof, for something that could be written down and explained. Echo opened his mouth. the silence stretched thin. For a moment, it felt like the decision had finally been taken away from him. Then Lily did something small. She placed her hand on the bench between them, not touching him, just close enough to say, "I'm here." Echo closed his mouth again. The sound stayed inside. This wasn't the right moment. Silence, once learned, is not broken easily. The woman exhaled slowly. "Give us a little time," she said. The request wasn't desperate. It was steady. The uniformed figures exchanged a glance, the kind that weighs rules against reality. They didn't move closer. Not yet. They didn't move away either. The question was still open. And for the first time, Echo understood something clearly. His silence was no longer invisible. It was being examined, and whatever happened next would decide whether silence could still protect him. The world waited. Not loudly, not impatiently, just long enough to make silence feel heavy. Echo stood up. Not suddenly, not to defend, simply because sitting no longer felt right. His chest rose slowly. The memory of sound pressed against his throat. Lily noticed first the shift in his posture, the way his weight moved forward. She didn't look at him. She didn't speak. She stayed exactly the way she was. The woman felt it next, that quiet moment where something fragile decides whether to exist or disappear. Echo opened his mouth. The silence stretched thinner than it ever had before. What came out wasn't a bark. It wasn't loud. It wasn't sharp. It was a low, broken sound, a breath that had learned how to hurt. It barely reached the ears of the people standing nearby, but it reached Lily. Her shoulders dropped instantly, not in relief, in recognition. Echo didn't make the sound again. He didn't need to. The woman turned slightly toward the uniformed figures. "He's not aggressive," she said quietly. "He's trying." One of them nodded slowly, not convinced, but listening. Echo lowered his head again. The effort had taken something out of him. Sound was not free anymore. It cost him. Lily moved then, just a little. She placed her hand on the ground beside him, not touching, offering space. Echo leaned forward until his nose hovered above her fingers. He stopped there. That was close enough. The uniformed figures stepped back half a pace, not leaving, but no longer advancing. The decision hadn't been made yet, but the moment had changed, because silence had finally answered, without becoming noise. The sound faded quickly. It didn't echo. It didn't demand attention. It simply existed, then passed. Echo lowered himself back onto the pavement. His body felt heavier than before, not weaker, just spent. Lily stayed where she was. She didn't rush to him. She didn't celebrate. She understood something important. Moments like that don't want applause. They want space. The woman spoke quietly with the uniformed figures. Her words weren't sharp. They weren't defensive. She talked the way people do when they're trying to protect something fragile without breaking it. Echo listened without listening. The tone felt different now, slower, less certain. One of the figures glanced at Echo again. Not as a problem, as a question. Lily felt the shift too. Her shoulders loosened, her breathing steadied. She leaned back slightly on the bench, letting her hands rest openly on her knees. The woman nodded once. Not in victory, in understanding. "We'll give it some time," someone said. Time. The word landed gently this time, not as a threat, as an allowance. The uniformed figures stepped away, not far, but far enough. Echo watched them go without lifting his head. He wasn't afraid anymore. He wasn't relieved either. He was learning something new. Silence could still exist, even after sound. Lily looked down at him and smiled softly, not because everything was okay, because something had survived. Echo closed his eyes for the first time that day, just for a moment, resting. The world hadn't decided yet, but it had paused, and sometimes a pause is enough to keep a story alive. The park didn't look different. The bench was the same. The street still carried the same sounds, but something had shifted quietly, where no one could point to it. Echo stayed, not because he was waiting for someone to return anymore, but because this place had changed its meaning. Lily came back the next day, and the day after that. Sometimes she sat, sometimes she left early, sometimes she didn't bring food at all. Echo didn't mind. He had learned that presence wasn't measured in offerings. The woman arranged things quietly, not papers and signatures, just time, space, understanding. Echo wasn't taken away. He wasn't fixed. He wasn't suddenly loud again. He remained who he was, a dog who had learned silence too well. Lily never asked him to bark. She never waited for it. She understood something adults often forget. Not every wound wants noise. Some just want to be seen. One evening, as the sun lowered behind the trees, Lily stood up to leave. She paused, looked back at Echo. "See you tomorrow," she said softly. Echo lifted his head. His tail moved once, just enough. He didn't make a sound. He didn't need to, because this time, he wasn't waiting for the world to listen. The world had already stopped and listened to him. Some dogs never get their voice back, but they find something else instead. A place, a presence, and a silence that no longer hurts.